So it is apparently a trend to release your All-Star game rosters this week. We talked about the this is really an All-Star centric podcast. We talked about the Pro Bowl, and now we're going to talk about the NHL All-Star game because they just revealed not the full selection of players. We're going to do to tease it out a little bit to keep you coming back for more.
Oh yeah.
We're going to do our own little version of the All-Star draft once the additional fan voted players are in, so we have the full roster. But the NHL did reveal their first 32 selections, one from every team. So we've got that full list of picks. So basically, who people think so it's the league's Department of Hockey Ops, who they think the best player on essentially every single team is. So obviously something pretty interesting, and I'll leave that up with you, Simon.
I was
In
gonna
terms
ask
of
on how you wanted to necessarily go through this because we have
it-
there's a couple different ways we can kill this pig.
I mean, we can do it in a similar way we did the Pro Bowl in terms of just going east and then west and talking about any picks we find interesting, controversial.
Well, the main
snubs,
difference with
whatever.
the NHL is it's not East and West, right? So there's four divisions. So I feel like we could do that. We could just break it down by division.
Okay, I might have to find the list that I have is
Well,
just east and west. I might.
okay. Well, I can. The beautiful thing about this incredible. Wow, are you ready for this? Where do we want to start? Do you think?
Oh, well,
You ready to see this fancy
in
thing
terms
that I
of
can do?
division.
Yeah, probably.
Oh, I'm so ready. Let's pull up the Pacific. Why not? You
Okay.
don't want to bury the lead. I know you've got an Elias Lindholm rant sitting on there.
I do
Like,
have an Elias Lindholm rant that I'm ready to go on. I already went on it once today. Shout out to Anand on his podcast. He may or may not be coming on next week to talk with us. Anyway,
whoa,
Pacific Division. We're throwing
we're
everything
really
out.
like keeping it coming.
Oh yeah, we're
Yeah.
throwing it all out. We're gonna have our first guest next week. I was gonna wait till the end to announce that, but it's gonna be fun. Anyway, here's our Pacific Division. I kind of cut it off at the end, but that's all right. Anyway, our names are Frank Vetrano, I believe is how you pronounce it. Elias Lindholm, Connor McDavid, Cam Talbot, Tomas Hertl, Oliver Bjorkstrand, Quinn Hughes, and Jack Eichel. And for anybody who is unfamiliar, in the NHL, one player needs to be selected from each team. So there are still about 12 spots that are left to be filled by the fan vote, but these are the players that were selected to represent their teams officially. So we're going to just go down each of them and just figure out which kind of makes sense, which don't. Caleb, if you need time to get your research and see if you have any of these that you're pissed about, I have one that I can say that I'm not necessarily happy about, and that's the Elias Lindholm pick. Like I said, I already spoke on it. I don't think it's the right pick. I think there's a lot of players on this Flames team that have had an excellent season, and it feels like a very strange one to give it to Lindholm. He's been very, very good for the Flames at certain points in his career. Like, he's had a number of seasons over a point per game and didn't get the All-Star vote. So it feels very weird to reward him now just because we don't our top scorers aren't necessarily big names. I'm talking about Blake Coleman. Nazem Kadri is the one right under him, who is a bigger name, but for some reason didn't get picked in this case. And even below that, you could talk about Mackenzie Weegar. You could talk about there's just a lot of other picks on this Flame squad that people are mad that they didn't make. And I think the big one to me that sticks out is Coleman. I think that if anybody deserved it this year, it probably was Coleman. With how good he's been on both sides of the puck, this is the type of year where he's not going to have better. Lindholm is going to have much better seasons in the rest of his career. But Coleman is having a career year right now. He's having the best season he's ever had as a Flame. And if you were ever going to reward him with an all-star pick, this would be the year to do it. And it really sucks to me to see him get his spot taken away by a player who's having a down year. It just feels odd. Moving through the rest of the list, most of them make fairly good sense to me. The one slightly off pick, if you want to just go by like star value, would be Frank Vetrano. Like I said,
yeah, that was the one I was gonna jump on there. Like,
okay,
if you want to to your point about Lindholm, like I completely agree. And I think giving it to a guy like Coleman, who's actually been having the better season, feels a lot better because it's the same argument we had about the Pro Bowl, where it's very much a name value pick. The one thing I would say that if you're a Flames fan, you can look at this and spin it positively is maybe say, does that increase a little Elias Lindholm trade value potentially?
And that has been
like
the conversation that has been had, where it's almost like I wonder if the Flames wanted him to go just so that to up the trade value a little bit, but it's I don't know. Even that feels odd. I feel like he's getting the pick because he's the biggest name, and sending Coleman just isn't as sexy.
Yeah, I think so too. But you do wonder how much say, because it's kind of like a shadow council type pick, right? In terms of how they actually make these decisions. How much, like, I wonder if the Flames higher ups can kind of like poke and prod them a little bit to be like, not even just like saying like, hey, pick Lindholm,
that feels
stats, like.
Well, and the one thing that I read once that is exactly what you said, where it's almost like you got to wonder if maybe this is just Craig Conroy's way of being able to advertise that he has a All-Star on the market, right? Like it's just that type of thing where it's just, which I don't know, it feels very odd to me to really be making, because I don't understand how they would even, I don't understand how these players are picked, I guess. Like, is it?
Yes, and I think.
Like,
I mean, it just says it's the Department of Hockey Ops, so it's like it's just
that can be pretty.
It literally is
air.
kind of just a shadow council,
trick play,
right? Like,
trick play conspiracy theories out here. We're getting real into it. Oh yeah, but yeah. Other than that, like you were gonna point out Frank Vetrano, where I to my knowledge, I don't know a lot about this Ducks roster. I know Zegras was having a down year. I know they don't really have a lot of other star talent other than Zegras that would really. Like,
I mean,
stick out to you.
the biggest one that I would almost sub out just in terms of like young star talent would be a guy like Mason McTavish, who's having a pretty decent year and has pretty. Vetrano has surprisingly decent stats for what I would expect. Not like I've been grinding Ducks tape, but a guy like Mason McTavish has a higher like points per game number, like. So you kind of look at that and think if there's anybody to represent the Ducks, like he may be a better choice, even if Vetrano technically has more points. But one of the things that the Frank Vetrano and Elias Lindholm picks kind of bring up to me, and my biggest kind of thing about this whole All-Star selection is, I think the NHL is just stupid for making sure every team has a representative. I don't think that's the right way to do it.
No, I don't think that's. I don't think that's even a conversation. I agree with you. I think it's very stupid. I think ever since they implemented it, it's been a really, really crappy change. Because I understand the reasoning behind it when they first put it in was that it would up viewership for the All-Star game because each team would have somebody for their respective fan base to cheer on, right? It's that argument. And maybe that's the case. I don't know the stats for that. Maybe that is bringing in more people. If it's not, you're just taking away. It's like, are you telling me Frank Vetrano should be picked as a starter over like Leon Draisaitl or like another one of those big names where like it just feels weird to not read them on this list? Like it's weird because the Pacific does it. Like you're telling me Frank Vetrano, I'm crapping on him, but like, are you telling me that's a bigger All-Star?
Or even like
it's.
And that brings up, it's not even like, because it is him stealing spots from guys like Draisaitl, or even like, if you look at Vancouver, where it's like, just like how McDavid is obviously deserving for the Oilers, it's like Quinn Hughes is deserving for the Canucks too, who's had a fantastic season, but it also feels wrong to leave a guy like Elias Pettersson off the list.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Where it feels like if you're actually making a Pacific Division All-Star team, you leave off Vetrano and Lindholm and you put in Pettersson and Draisaitl. Like, it's just such a no-brainer that's hampered by this system.
Yeah, and it sucks. I think it really sucks. Because we're not seeing the best of the best. It allows, in some situations, it allows for players, for example, like, I'm sure Bedard would have made it in anyway, but that's one that stuck out to me where, like, he became the youngest All-Star this year, but it's almost like, I could see him potentially being close to being near the cut if they let everybody from, for example, Colorado jump on that horse, right? Like it's one of those things where it's just, I don't know. It feels kind of weird. It's working out for the NHL in picks like that where like a young rookie, they're able to advertise it, where I'm sure we're going to see tons of photos of Connor Bedard chatting it up with Connor McDavid and Sidney Crosby, but
Yeah.
and that's great for the NHL's branding and all that. But it's unfortunate a little bit. I mean, like Leon Draisaitl, Cale Makar, all those guys are still gonna make it through the fan vote, but it still feels odd.
Yeah. And at least there's that. Like, at least, like, a lot of these guys aren't going to actually get snubbed. Because that would be even more of a cause for outrage if they did get snubbed that way. But I don't know. Like, I do think an all-star game appearance or a Pro Bowl for these players, it's not, like... The idea of getting more fans to watch the all-star game or watch the Pro Bowl, that's always been an issue. And it's not one that's going to be that easily solved by just saying, oh, here's a player from your favorite team, go have at her. Like, it's a bigger issue than that. And I think it's just taking away the accomplishment that things like this have on a player's career. Like, it's a thing to be like, oh, I'm a 7-time Pro Bowler, I'm a 7-time All-Star. Like, you're just taking away the actual sense of accomplishment from it. By just giving it to guys willy-nilly because they're supposedly the best player on their team.
Against it when it was implemented, and it just feels very wrong to have it this way. If we want, we can move on to the Central Division, though. I touched on it very lightly with the Connor Bedard pick, but he becomes the youngest NHL All-Star ever. Joining him from the Central Division is Clayton Keller, Nathan McKinnon, Jake Ottinger, Kaprizov, I always forget how to say his name. I always feel bad about that one. Philip Forsberg, Robert Thomas, Connor Hellebuck. A lot of good picks here. A lot of very, very good players. These are every single player on this board feels like an all-star, at least to me. Where it's just like I honestly, when I haven't fully taken a look at the other teams that other than the Pacific, I'm kind of letting it all come to me as we're going here. But so far, the Central looks absolutely stacked. Connor Bedard, Nathan McKinnon on the ice at the same time. Holy crap, give it to me now. But I don't know. I don't have a lot of bad things to say here. Again, you can just hit on the same conversation we've been having with the Pacific Division, where it's like, where's Cale Makar? Where's, hell, another player from the Stars? You could bring in, like, Heiskanen.
Robertson.
Yeah. Like, there's a lot of players there who deserve to be here that just aren't because of this rule, and it's kind of dumb, but it is what it is. Do you have anything is there anything here that really sticks out to you?
No, not really. I mean, it's the same thing where it's just the players that are missing just because of the rule, and they'll get voted in eventually, but it just really doesn't feel complete. I do wonder. There's a lot of goalies even in because you got Hellebuck and you got Ottinger and you got Talbot, right? There's already an overload of goalies, and I mean, I don't know how they're gonna divvy it up. Like, are you not allowed to vote any more goalies in for the Western Conference because they've already got their 3? Like, there's only one defenseman per conference. You got Hughes in the West and
there's gonna be
not
a
to
draft,
tip the hand
I
too
guess.
much Stalin in the East.
So I'm curious how that's all gonna. I'm curious how the draft's going to work in this case with 4 different teams. I think that'll be a lot of fun. But, I mean, once again, the Trick Play All-Star Draft will be happening as well with only 2 teams. Maybe we can bring another person into it. Maybe, who knows? We'll see what happens.
You wanna? Should we get a? Could we get a 4? The first time we bring in 1 guest, and then we bring in.
And we
2. 1-up it.
And then guess what's gonna happen when we get to the NFL draft? We're gonna bring in 30. You're gonna fit 30 people on the screen.
One for each team.
You thought my forehead was big? Just wait till you're looking at 30 of them. Oh, it's gonna be exciting. I'd be down to do that if we can find 2 people. We'll have to see how that ends up working out by the time we get there. But anyway, we can move on. I think is that safe to say? Anything else we want to hit on with the Central? No. Okay. Metropolitan Division is where we're gonna go next. For this one, we have Sebastian Aho.
Boone Jenner represents.
Boone Jenner, which feels very strange, and I'm sure we can talk about that. Jack Hughes, Matt Barzell, Shesterkin, Travis. Do you know how to say his last name? I struggle with that one. Konechny? I don't know.
Konechny.
Konechny. I see that guy's name a lot, but every time I look at it, it's like I never heard it out loud for some reason. Sidney Crosby. I wonder how you pronounce that guy's last name. Tom Wilson. So a lot of interesting ones here, I think. Because
Tom Wilson making it in.
yeah, that's been a conversation that's been had a little bit. Tom Wilson making it in, Philly. Like, there's a lot of not very good teams in this division. A lot of players make sense. Like Jack Hughes, obviously. Matt Barzal, obviously. Sidney Crosby, obviously. Like, and then the rest of the team, Shesterkin, again, obviously. But, like, past that, there's a lot of players here who are just kind of... It sticks out to you because you're like, why are they all-stars? You pointed out Boone Jenner right off the drop, right? Like, that's a really obvious one where I'd have to pull up his stats, but it feels odd to have him representing.
It's just because that Columbus team is terrible. So like it's again like it's gonna sound like a broken record, but it's the same thing where it's you shouldn't. Columbus doesn't deserve to have an all-star this year. It's not like Johnny Gaudreau is their only all-star like star caliber player, but he hasn't played very well and he doesn't deserve it. So I don't know. Is Boone Jenner the best team on the Blue Jackets? I don't know. I mean, again, I haven't been grinding Blue Jackets tape religiously, because they're a terrible team and they don't deserve to have any All-Stars. Nobody on the Blue Jackets is an All-Star, which shows when you have to scrounge for guys like Boone Jenner to make the All-Star team. No disrespect to Boone Jenner. Like, the guy's been in the league for a long time. Like, props to him for making it, and it's a great accomplishment for your career. But it's not like he deserves it. Yeah, 18 points in 29 games played. That's not the.
That's nothing.
That's not the most impressive. I don't know. Just put one of their young guys in there at least. Put in Fantilli or something.
And I mean,
Cylinder.
you're sending your captain.
Put in somebody exciting.
I guess like there's something there, maybe, but I don't know. Maybe. I agree with you. It's a little odd. That's for sure.
Because what is Boone? Is Boone Jenner even a first line player?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. Like
you said,
I have been.
Boone Jenner is currently 8th in points. Like,
is he really on
his own team?
Wow.
Yeah, Gaudreau, Werenski, Fantilli, Marchenko, Provorov, I don't even know how to say that guy's name. Vorunkov and Dan Danforth are currently ahead of him.
Wow, that's pretty surprising to me.
To Boone Jenner's credit, he has played less games than all of them, but still.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, most of those names I still wouldn't want on the All-Star game team either.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. Like, I think we could really pick this apart if we wanted to, and like just look into like even Philly. I feel like you could make the same argument where it's like do you really want
Konechny's had a good year though?
Has he? Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just me not knowing enough about. I am sorry, Konechny. I do not know your game.
35 points in 38 games.
Okay, that is deserving.
So almost at a point.
I will happily bite the bullet on that one. I was wrong, but I will say Boone Jenner.
That's the difference.
It's the funny thing where like it almost feels like the NHL is trying to do the thing that we all did with the John Scott thing, where they're trying to like do it on purpose, where they're sending over a guy who shouldn't be here. But it's like that takes away the fun of it. Well, we want to fan vote a funny guy in.
It does take away the fun of it, and it's also not like Boone Jenner is like the funny part about John Scott was that he was
literally
in the
an
AHL
player.
when he played.
Yeah. John Scott is a hero.
That's the best the All-Star game has ever been.
Oh yeah, I love that year.
Because John Scott played fantastic in that game too. Right?
Oh yeah, he kicked ass.
He was unironically the MVP. Like.
Oh yeah, no, and he deserved it too. John Scott is an absolute hero. Just for him.
That's the best the All-Star game.
We're using. I'm throwing him on the screen. If you do not know John Scott's story, salute the flag here, ladies and gentlemen. Like John Scott, what a hero.
What a guy.
I miss that All-Star. That was such a time to be alive.
That was a broken record. That's the best the All-Star game has ever been.
Yep. No, and
that's the most excited I've ever been for it.
Yeah, and the funny thing is I totally agree with you. I think that is the best it's been. That was like the one. That was the year where I got super into it, and then the next year I was a lot less into it. We can move on though. I think
Yeah.
we've beaten up the Metropolitan Division enough. We can move into the second part of the East here in the Atlantic, which is headed by David Pasternak, Rasmus Dahlin, Alex DeBrincat, Sam Reinhart, Nick Suzuki, Brady Tkachuk, Nikita Kucherov, Austin Matthews. A lot of very good players there, a lot of very deserving players, but it's again the type of thing where it's like it almost feels like you're just leaving players off because they can't make it
Because of how good.
because of how good all these
Yeah,
teams
because
are. Most of these teams are really good, right? Like that's the tough
yeah.
thing. So
Honestly,
it's just,
the only thing I'm surprised at is not because of the inclusion, just by looking at the stats, but how surprisingly good of a season Sam Reinhart is having.
oh
That's
yeah,
impressive.
yeah, he's having a really good.
47 points in 38 games. He's tearing it up. Because I was surprised to not see a guy like Kachuk or Barkov on there, but he's
Well, I know
backing it up.
Kachuk's
He's
having a bit of a
making me
down
eat
year
my
as well.
words.
Well, yeah, Kachuk's having a bit of
Yeah.
a down year, so I think I don't know. I guess he's just it. The pick makes sense. Is kind of where I was. I lost my train of thought, but the pick definitely makes sense in this sense.
Yeah.
But I
Because
hopefully
the rest of them,
we
the
have a
rest of
good.
them you can't argue with.
Like we were just talking about how
The
the
rest
All
of
Star
them you
game
can't argue
hasn't
with.
been as good. I'm kind of hoping the draft brings it back to that, to how good it's been in years past at certain points. Because there's certain memories we all have of like the All Star skills competition and the All Star games, and like that really stick out. I'm sure everybody, like at least I have a couple personal favorites that I'm sure a lot of people share. Which John Scott, that's a top tier one. Corey Perry throwing his glove, like stuff like that that really just like stick out to you when you think about it. And it feels like we haven't had
Yeah.
one of those moments in a while. So hopefully we get back to that. Hopefully I think it needed a change, so I'm all for it.
Yeah. I did like the format they had before, and I do think the player draft is a little bit like we've talked about this. We had a
Yeah.
segment about this, but I do think it is. I'm not a big fan of the player draft, but I also see where you're coming from in terms of like something needed to spice it up at this point. It had been growing a little bit stale, so while I'm not the biggest personal fan of the player draft as a concept, I welcome the change, and I'm interested to see how it goes.
Yep. And I totally agree with you. I think that just about does it. We've gone through every single player. Not a lot of bad ones. It's more just the crappy part about all these players being excluded from the first naming. That just leaves you kind of scratching your head a little bit on why Leon Draisaitl, Cale Makar, Mitch Marner. I could go on why all of these players just didn't make it because their teams are good. Like it feels weird to penalize teams for being good. I guess that's kind of
It does. It does.
like where we can end it off right there. It feels like a strange
Yeah.
place to just leave it, I guess. Where it's like why would you leave this
It does.
rule?
It also feels weird to have the NHL pick the starting 32 and then ask the fans to fix their mistakes.
Yeah.
That
Actually, that's a really good way to put it. Yeah. Like that is a very odd thing because I mean, especially after the whole John Scott debacle, who knows? Maybe we'll get like, I don't know, name me a funny Oiler over Leon Draisaitl. That'd be awesome. I hope
Ryan
that happens.
McLeod. Ryan
Yeah.
McLeod. Put
Get
Ryan
Ryan
McLeod in the
Get
All-Star.
Ryan McLeod in the All-Star game. Spread it around, ladies and gentlemen. We want Ryan McLeod.
According to my dad, he's been playing very well.
Oh, okay. Well, then
So-
that's less funny. Give me come on. Send
Let's having Ryan McLeod in the All-Star game is still funny because there's only so good as because my dad. My dad is a diehard Oilers fan. He's gonna hype up anybody who's on the Oilers and breathing.
I guess. Yeah, that's fair.
Back
Send
when you
Dan
could put, like
Vladar.
Zach Cassian in the All-Star game.
Yeah, send Dan Vladar. I don't know why. Just do it.
It's his last. Because this is your one nice thing you'll have with Dan Vladar because otherwise you just want to get rid of him so we could bring up Dustin Wolf. You
I don't
put
know
him
what
in the
you're talking
All-Star
about.
game, let him
I don't know what you're talking about.
Put him in the
I
All-Star
don't
game,
know.
parade around in a
Kill him.
Flames jersey for a little bit before you ship him off to like Washington or something.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about at all, actually. That wasn't my plan
Hmm.
all along, and definitely not me trying to convince the Shadow Council to put Dan Vladar in the All-Star game so that his draft stock goes up and doesn't make him look like a goalie who has an 888 save percentage. I think it'll work.
You should take over from Craig Conroy, Simon. Really.
I think I should.
Or no.
Do you think I'm marketing
They need
him
to
well?
put you in. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Everybody
I
should
think
trade
so.
for Dan Vladar. Trade me your first. Just do it.
If people just stare at this picture of Dan Vladar on the sexy reverse
I will
stretcher
say,
for long enough,
I
they're
will
gonna
say that
find
is a
way to
sick
trade him.
photo.
That is a sick photo.
That is a sick photo.
It's
That
just
makes
'cause
Dan
those
Vladar
jerseys
look
are
like an elite goalie.
spectacular.
God, isn't Dan Vladar the most
Yeah.
elite goalie you've ever seen? You should trade for him.
Wow, you really should.
You really should.
GMs who are definitely watching this.
God, everybody
Yeah.
knows that good goaltenders wear number 80. Just trade for
Come on, Steve. Come on, Stevie Y.
him. You know you want Vladar.
Wouldn't you love to see good old buddy Dan in some red and white, but a different red and white this time?
Yeah, different red and white. Damn right. Okay, anyway, coming up next, NBA.